Quarter Racing Update, Remington Park. Powered by Oklahoma Quarter Horse Racing Association. Here's Dale Day.
Hello and thanks for joining us here on the Quarter Racing Update. A huge weekend coming up at Remington Park with Saturday's Remington Park Futurity and Derby, both Grade 3 events for Oklahoma-bred runners. And there is big dough on the line, $791,000 in the 330-yard Futurity, while the 400-yard Derby has $298,000 in purse money. We'll talk more about both of those races a bit later. There were no stakes races run this past week at Remington Park, but that doesn't mean it was uneventful. A win streak grew to 4 in a row, and a new track record was set, all involving the same horse. So let's get to this week's highlights.
Pure D Spit. The 10-horse in this 330-yard starter allowance on April 10th isn't the type of classy stakes performer that grabs headlines by winning big money graded races, but he is a special horse nonetheless. Owned and trained by Rodrigo Covarrubias, Pure D Spit is currently on a 4-race win streak with 3 of those at Remington Park. In fact, if you look back a little further, you'll see that since October of 2012, the 6-year-old gelding has 10 wins and 4 seconds from 14 starts. And lately, he's been running real fast. In his last 10, he's run nothing lower than a 97 speed index. In this race, Pure D Spit set a new 330-yard track record, 16.323 seconds, lowering the old mark by 21 hundredths of a second. We'll keep you updated on the latest from this exceptional runner, Pure D Spit, here on the Quarter Racing Update. Now for something completely different, racing mini donkeys. They entertained the crowd at Remington Park last Sunday in this chariot race with Don Diego and his driver Patrick Zen taking the winner's trophy home. It was all sponsored by the Oklahoma Quarter Horse Racing Association, who will also bring you extreme racing on Sunday, April 27th at RP. Zebras, ostriches, and camels, all with human jockeys racing on the track, plus pigs on the plaza. Always a huge day at Remington Park. Make it out on April 27th for extreme racing. That's highlights for this week. Back to Dale Day.
The $791,000 Remington Park Futurity is Saturday's main event. It's a Grade 3 race for Oklahoma-bred 2-year-olds at 330 yards. Time trials were held on April 4th and 5th, and horses with the 5 fastest times from each night qualified for the final on Saturday. Leading the group from April 4th is A.C. Taylor's Specials Jamie. Trained by Casey Willis, the filly ran a 97 speed index while setting the fastest time of 16.583 seconds. 2 others qualified from the same trial race, Beneteau and AJ's High. On April 5th, the last trial of the night produced the top 3 qualifiers, led by Reliance Ranch's Penthouse Suite. The filly stopped the timer at 16.726 seconds, but it was a tight finish in this one, as only a head and a neck separated the first 3 at the finish line. Trained by Eddie Willis, Penthouse Suite was followed to the wire by Beyond Gold Medal and WL Mr. Goodtime. But it's a 10-horse race, and less than 3/10 of a second separate the fastest and the slowest qualifiers. So it's time now to look at several of the contenders in the Remington Park Futurity.
On last week's show, we looked at 2 trial races from April 4th and 5th, both of which produced 3 qualifiers for the 330-yard Remington Futurity. Today, we'll look at the other Oklahoma-bred 2-year-olds that made it to Saturday's final with winning efforts in their trial heats. April 5th, number 2 in this trial, I'm a Fancy PYC. Veers inside with the first several jumps, then turns in the 5th fastest time of the day, 16.873 seconds. This was his second win from 2 starts. Owned by Dustin Cox and trained by Joe Thomas Sr., I'm a Fancy PYC was ridden by Randy Wilson in the trial. He has the call again in the Remington Futurity final. Bill Price's BP Down South trained by Eddie Willis, ran 5th in a maiden race before this April 5th trial for the RP Futurity. Breaking from the 3-hole, BP Down South makes contact with the 2-horse after the break, battles with the 4 in mid-stretch, then drives home to a 1-length win in 16.8 seconds. Jockey Omar Reyes has the return call on BP Down South on Saturday night. El Diablo from the Brian Muse training stable is owned by Brian Gunder. The gelding made his debut in this Futurity trial on April 4th. Number 7 on the outside, El Diablo gathers speed throughout to pull away by a half length and stops the timer at 16.695 seconds, 5th fastest among that day's qualifiers. Ivan Carnero will ride El Diablo in the Remington Park Futurity. Great Grace is another trial race winner who hung up the second fastest time on April 4th. Owned by George Mitchell, the filly won her trial impressively with Ricky Ramirez in the irons. She's trained by Trey Wood, who has experience in winning big races at RP, with victories in the last 2 $1 million Heritage Place Futurities. Great Grace's 2 1/4 length win and 16.607 time has landed her in morning line favorite status for Saturday's Futurity. But she still has obstacles to overcome, namely Specials Jamie, who turned in the fastest time on April 4th, and Penthouse Suite, the top qualifier on April 5th. Specials Jamie's trial was her second career start after running second in a maiden race in mid-March. She prevailed in her trial by 3/4 of a length while completing the 330 yards in 16.583 seconds. The Casey Willis Charge is owned by A.C. Taylor. Augustin Silva has the return call on Specials Jamie in the RP Futurity. 2 others from that trial also qualified for the final. Beneteau, owned by James Sills and trained by Eddie Willis, and Michael Teal's AJ's High from the Charlie Hunt training stable. Penthouse Suite ran the fastest of all in the second set of trials for owner Reliance Ranches. The filly's time of 16.726 seconds followed a stretch duel, which she won by a head under jockey Jimmy Brooks, who will ride the filly in the final. 2 others from her heat made the cut for the Futurity. Beyond Gold Medal, trained by Donnie Strickland for owner Adina Baker, and Wade Leggett's WL Mr. Goodtime, who is conditioned by Cody McCart. A solid field of 2-year-old Oklahoma bred set to compete this Saturday in the Grade 3 Remington Park Futurity. The co-feature on the card is the $298,000 RP Derby at 400 yards. This trial, on April 6th, produced 2 qualifiers for the event, bookends of sorts as they had the fastest and the 10th fastest times of the day. Running second was Quick Shooter, trained by Guillermo Valdivia. Leading the way was Shades of Blues Girl from the Eddie Willis stable. Her time was the quickest of all qualifiers, 19.602 seconds. Owned by Reliance Ranches, the filly has won her last 4 races. Jimmy Brooks was aboard for 3 of those, as he will be in the $298,000 RP Derby, Saturday night, April 19th at Remington Park.
Racing Free is well represented at Remington Park during the spring meeting, including this weekend's card toppers. Let's check in with Daniel Bryan for the latest from Racing Free.
There's nothing better than seeing Racing Free member horses qualifying to some of the country's biggest futurities and derbies. This week, our team will be cheering on the Corona Cartel filly Penthouse Suite in the $861,000 Remington Park Futurity, as well as returning Derby horse VH1 and fastest qualifier Shades of Blues girl in the Remington Park Derby. We hope to spend lots of time in the winner's circle throughout the duration of the Remington Park meet. With so much excitement around our growing program, we cannot forget to thank our list of Racing Free sponsors that have stepped up to support a level playing field in racing. This week, we would like to thank the Oklahoma Quarter Horse Racing Association, Valley Farm out of Annetta, Texas, Cal Density Equine Products, and Oklahoma's own Bob Moore Farms. For more information on our wonderful sponsors and how you can join the movement for the future of racing, visit our website at www.racingfree.com. I'm Danielle Bryan.
Thanks, Danielle. Time to put a cap on this edition of the Quarter Racing Update. A quick reminder, though, this Saturday is a great time to come out and see the world's fastest athletes in action. 5 big stakes races topped off by the $791,000 Remington Park Futurity. For the entire staff and crew at RaceView Network, I'm Dale Day. See you next time.